here's a good one here from Steve Zach Botsford. He says, San Diego State with the win, hope they can make it to the third round.
Well, John had the ideal comment. They now have an alley to get to the third round. Hey, you're Furman, South Carolina. You're Furman. You live off the 3. Good luck, Furman, facing all this defense that San Diego State's going to hit you with out beyond the arc. And then what they're going to do in terms of banging on bodies if you try to go to the basket. I mean, they took Charleston right out of the game with their defense, and Charleston never recovered. I'll go back to the statistic. Charleston was hitting 10 threes per night, every night. They went 5 for 24 against the Aztecs. So the alleyway to get to the Sweet 16 is right there.
Yeah, it's right in front of them. So good on these guys. So hopefully they get to play Furman. Maybe they can get past Furman. And then who you're looking at next, most likely Alabama. Cinderella story, hopefully this is going to work out well for Brian Dutcher and the boys.
No, they got 1 win. You got to have 2 before you can have a winning streak. On we go. Next question.
Okay, so this is from the turd in the background, and this is a soccer comment. He says, Gregg Berhalter has the greatest winning percentage in U.S. men's national team history when fielding a team with an average age of under 26 years old.
Oh, you're correct. And the whole blueprint when he finally got the job was, we're going to build this with the best young American players, and we will put them on the pitch. We will force feed them, and they will grow. Well, outside of the injury to Pulisic in the World Cup at the end, they grew, and they were really competitive. And yes, they did get to the knockout round. So that was a step forward in this program. And the whole game plan, build it, young guys, play them, get them better, and then we'll take this group to 2026. And they've got firepower, goal scorers. They got really young pups. I mean, they still got to solve the Giorena problem. They got Ricardo Pepi. They got the young guy, Zendejas, who could either be wearing red, white, and blue or be the guy wearing the colors for El Tri in Mexico. So they've got all these young guys here in place, and that's all Berhalter's doing.
Yeah, I'm excited for the U.S. men's national team. Like you said, they went young for this World Cup cycle. 2026 will be special, played here in North America. So I think we're looking at, rosy pastures ahead for the U.S. team.
Okay, on we go. Next question.
On we go. So let's go to some of these YouTube comments. We got some good ones that have come in here. And it's a lot of it. This is about the Austin Ekeler deal. Should they keep him? Should they trade them? And from Dina, she says, Ekeler has been the most consistent running back on the Chargers roster. Spiller, Kelly, Sony Mitchell, Roundtree, etc. did nothing for the Chargers. Chargers wouldn't be 10-7 if it wasn't for Austin. Just pay the man.
Well, I concur with you. They got a salary cap problem, though, because of what they gave all these other, quote, star players, and you can't keep all these players together. One of the solutions would be you owe us 1 more year on your contract at $6.2 million. You play that contract, and then we'll see. Well, then next year they could always franchise tag him. And next year's franchise tag with the running back is going to be about $12 million. But the point here, to get to that point there, you might have a really unhappy player, and I don't know if you want to have that. But I wouldn't trade him. I'd find a way. If I were king, chapter 3, I go to Khalil Mack and I go to Joey Bosa and I go to Keenan Allen. You made a lot of money. I need you to take a pay cut so I can keep this running back here, because we're all about the team holding it together so we can win. I would not trade him, because I guarantee you, you're not going to get an Austin Ekeler who's a perfect fit for all things Justin Herbert in the draft. And I don't think you're going to get a guy like that as productive as that, over 7,700 all-purpose yards in his career. You're not going to get him in free agency because of the cost situation, and none of those guys are out there on the marketplace anyhow.
So why would, Khalil Mack or Joey Bosa, they might say, hey, man, I got a contract. I'm an all-pro. I ain't taking a pay cut for this guy. They might say that, but then what would the Chargers do? Release him? Call their bluff?
Well, they wouldn't release the players. They wouldn't release Mack nor Bosa because they'd take a monster cap hit.
Mm-hmm.
They would trade Ekeler. But how are you a better team a week from Monday if you trade Austin Ekeler away? You're not going to replace him in the draft, and there's hardly any free agent running backs out there on the marketplace. So they created this because of all the money they gave these guys. They can solve this. Some of those guys got to give the money back to give it to Ekeler because he's, as she says, key component to Justin Herbert's offense. Next
Yeah,
question.
I mean, you got a 56-man roster. I mean, how do you fit them all in? Okay, so this is from Jeff Neal, and he has a totally different opinion. He says, this is not the time to give big money to an aging back. It's better to part ways too early rather than too late. I'd like the Chargers to move up a couple of positions in order to draft Bijan Robinson with their first-round selection. These third-round reaches for overachievers has got to stop. This is a critical skill position that demands the investment of a first-round pick.
A year too early makes sense if you're talking about somebody that's 31 or 32 and has 100,000 miles on the tires. We're talking 26-year-old running back here. We're not talking about an aged, beat-up guy who's got an injury history that's making mega dollars. This is not Ezekiel Elliott. He's a perfect fit for all the things they do. They've tried really hard to find a second back to complement that perfect fit, have not been able to do it. And Bijan Robinson out of Texas is probably going to go inside the top 15. Well, trading from 23 into the top 15, that's going to cost you multiple picks. I don't know that I would do that. Give the man the money. Period, exclamation point, at least for the next year.
Okay, so let's move on. I got some Aztec comments here too. And this is from Chris. And he says, 2015 was the last NCAA tournament win for the Aztecs. And granted, this is a YouTube comment he made a few days ago. But the local media spend all their time patting them on the back. Hopefully they'll get a couple of wins this year.
Well, they got one in their pocket, and you got to get one before you can go get two. But the guys at CBS, I'm sorry, I went haywire today watching the pregame show. Every one of those studio guys, all they talked about was College of Charleston. Please pay attention. Quit treating these guys like Rodney Dangerfield. They have earned 28 wins, and they did it with defense.
Yeah. I mean, so these, yeah, you're right. They deserve the respect. Now, hopefully now they get the win. We can, give the team some deserved love. Here's another comment here about the Aztecs. This is from Michael Dabler. He says, great show. Like always, love the coverage you do on Aztec basketball. I agree. I think this year we get some wins in the tournament and a bit of respect. I know next season is a ways off, but I'm thinking Mr. Brian Dutcher is losing a lot of his team. What do you hear in the recruiting front for building next year's team and future? I know the more you win, the easier it usually is. Thanks a lot, guys.
Well, they lose a bunch of the bigs because all these guys have pretty much expired all the COVID extra years that they had to stay at San Diego State. But they have a pipeline of young guys. They got a couple of young recruits that redshirt as freshmen this year, have hardly played at all. Elijah Saunders among them. Those guys will grow, but they'll be a much younger basketball team. And obviously, they're going to lose some guards, too. I mean, Matt Bradley's had a really nice college career, and he's gone, and Arup is gone. Seiko is gone. We'll see what happens with Trammell or the other guys who could come back for an additional year. But historically, they've always done a great job replacing the veterans who were the cornerstones when they had good seasons.
Yeah, I mean, there's some really exciting players that have been selected or they've signed letters of intent. There's one guy, I think it was from up in Modesto. He's a really good player. And I'd like to see Miles Byrd. I want to see what he can do. Elijah Saunders, I think, could be a very interesting player. He's, really tall. When they were doing the team photo there in Orlando, I was like shocked to see how tall he was relative to everybody else. But Keyshawn Johnson is a guy that he participated in the senior night, but he could still stick around for another COVID year. Is he ready to move on to the next level? Selfishly, I'd love for him to stay, but he's a great kid, and I think I'm looking forward to his future.
And keep in mind, transfer portal is still out there, and that window will open again. And historically, every year, they go get good guys to bring them in. Any more questions there?
Well, I got a question for you, Hacksaw. Who do you like in the Final Four?
I can't argue against the number ones, the seeds.
Mm-hmm.
I can't argue about the way Kansas is playing. Houston's got an injury in the backcourt that scares me because their guard Sasser makes a whole different thing happen when they're there. Alabama, the gun controversy with Brandon Moore is still out there. Enormous criticism that Alabama should have removed him from the team during the course of the investigation, even though he's never been charged. But if he drove a car that had a gun in it and somebody else took that gun and killed that woman, how does he not get charged with being an accomplice? Because he knew there was a weapon in the vehicle, even if he did not hand it to Darius Miles, who then handed it to the shooter. For the first time, CBS's studio analysts kind of all talked about that today in the pregame show, and they all said he should have been removed for a period of time. But Bama's really good, and that's a really good player that may have positioned himself as either the second or third choice in the upcoming NBA draft.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because Alabama, you always think of them as a football school. I'll tell you what, Lee, my bracket's already destroyed. I mean, besides the fact that almost everyone in the world had Arizona beating Princeton, but my heart was rooting for the Mountain West teams. I had Nevada going to the round of 32. They're gone. I picked Utah State. They're gone. I picked West Virginia to beat Maryland. That didn't work out.
Well, you're on a bad streak.
Oh, it's been really tough. So, and then like most other people, I had Virginia beating Furman. So, but I have Purdue beating Kansas in the final.
The only concern I have about Purdue is, are they athletic enough to handle all these other teams and got all these guys that play racehorse basketball? I mean, Edey is just a tremendous 7'4" specimen, but they got so many people that play above the rim and get up and down the floor. It's going to be fascinating, but yeah, I'm sorry that you're 0 for the weekend so far.
Well, I picked the Aztecs, so we got that one going for us.
Hey, listen, we appreciate you being with us every Thursday. A reminder, we do bonus coverage on Mondays. Please subscribe when you watch our podcast. Give us a thumbs up so everybody knows that you really like what we're doing. And again, circle back, check my website, leehacksawhamilton.com. It is all written. It's in-depth coverage of all sports, especially focused on March Madness, as well as this week's wild couple of days in NFL free agency.